Nobody warns you about the parking lot. Not the courtroom, not the lawyer's office, not even the empty side of the bed. The parking lot. You come out of the grocery store, you put the bags in the trunk, you sit down behind the wheel, and you don't start the car. Because for the first time in 30 years, there is nobody at home waiting to ask what took you so long. So you sit there, 2 minutes, maybe 10, and a thought comes up that you would never say out loud to anybody who knows you. Is this it for me? If you have ever sat in that car, stay with me, because I'm not going to give you tips. I'm not going to tell you which app to download or how to smile in a photograph. I'm going to tell you the things nobody tells you about dating after divorce. And somewhere in the middle of this, I think you're going to recognize something you've been carrying in your chest for a long time without a name. Let's start with the thing you're most afraid is true. You think you're late. You think everyone else figured this out at 25, and you missed the window, and now you're standing outside a door that's already closed. Here is what the numbers actually say. Divorce among adults over 50 has more than doubled since the 1990s. Today, roughly 36% of all divorces in the United States involve someone 50 or older, and the only age group where the divorce rate is still climbing, the only one, is 65 and up. Read that again slowly. The people getting divorced right now are not the 20-somethings. They're us. So when you sit in that car and feel like the last person in the world starting over, you are, statistically, in a crowd. A very quiet crowd. Nobody posts about it. Nobody announces it at church. But it's a crowd. You're not late. You're just alone in a room full of people who are also alone and not saying so. Now let me tell you the first thing nobody tells you. You are not going back to dating. Everyone talks about it like a bicycle. You'll get back on it. It'll come back to you. It won't, because it isn't the same bicycle. It isn't even a bicycle anymore. The world where you met your husband, your wife, that world doesn't exist. There was a church, a neighborhood, a friend's kitchen, somebody's cousin. There was time. There was a whole village doing the introducing for you, and you didn't even notice it was working. That village is gone. You didn't get rusty. You landed in another country, and everyone around you keeps insisting you should already speak the language because you spoke it once, decades ago, when it was a different language. Online dating among people over 50 grew about 70% in 5 years, faster than any other group, which means the room is full. But it's a room where nobody was ever taught the rules, and everyone's pretending they were. So if you felt stupid, if you've stared at a phone and thought, "What is wrong with me? I raised 3 children, I ran a household, I survived things nobody knows about, and I can't figure out how to answer a message from a stranger," there is nothing wrong with you. You're just fluent in a language the world stopped speaking. Here's the second thing nobody tells you. Your wound talks before you do. You can dress well. You can be charming. You can be genuinely, truly ready to meet someone. And then, 12 minutes into a conversation over coffee, you say his name or her name, and you don't even hear yourself do it. The therapists have a phrase for this that I don't love, but it's accurate. They call it being still married in your head. And here's the cruel part. The wound doesn't announce itself as pain. It comes out as speed. It comes out as wanting to know where this is going by the third conversation. It comes out as needing clarity right now, because you're 61 and you feel like you don't have time to waste on maybe. That urgency feels like wisdom. It feels like finally knowing what you want. It isn't. It's fear, wearing the coat of maturity. And I want to say something carefully here, because it matters. You are allowed to still be grieving. Even if you're the one who left, even if leaving saved your life. An ARP study of people divorcing after 40 found that 66% of women said they were the ones who initiated it, 2/3. And the reasons they gave were not boredom, they were abuse, infidelity, addiction. But here's what struck me. In that same study, 26% of men said they never saw it coming, 1 in 4, compared to 14% of women. Sit with that for a second. She spent years watching a house burn down. He walked in one day and asked why everything smelled like smoke. 2 people, same marriage, 2 completely different endings. And that's why some of you are grieving a marriage, and some of you are grieving an ambush. Those are not the same wound. They don't heal on the same clock. By the way, before I go further, I want to tell you something, because I think it's only fair. For the next few days, we're staying right here. Relationships, love after 50, starting over, being alone, being wanted, being tired of pretending. This is the ground we're standing on for a while. And when we change subjects, when we move to something else entirely, I'll tell you, I always tell you, you'll never have to guess where we're going. So if this is your season, stay close. This week was built for you. Now, the third thing nobody tells you. Silence is not your enemy. There's a statistic that stopped me cold when I read it. 10 years after a grey divorce, about 77% of women have not repartnered, not remarried, not living with anyone. And the reflex is to hear that as tragedy. 77% of women alone. But then you look closer. 60% of divorced and widowed women over 50 say they have no interest in remarrying. No interest. Among men, that number is about 35%. That gap is not an accident. That gap is a confession. Because a lot of women didn't lose a marriage. They got out from under one. And what looks like loneliness from the outside is, from the inside, the first quiet house they've ever had. Research on people living alone in later life keeps finding the same strange, stubborn thing. Satisfaction with single life tends to grow with age, and having a romantic partner becomes less and less connected to whether a person feels lonely at all. Not zero. Less. Which means the thing you were told your whole life, that a partner is the cure for loneliness, was only ever half true, and it gets less true every year you live. I'm not telling you not to want love. I'm telling you the opposite of alone is not married. The opposite of alone is known, and you can be profoundly unknown inside a 30-year marriage. Some of you know exactly what I mean. Some of you sat across a dinner table from someone for decades and were more alone than you have been on any night since. So before you go looking for someone to fill the silence, ask yourself honestly whether the silence is the problem or whether the silence is just the first thing you've had in years that's actually yours. Now the fourth thing. And this one I need you to hear, because it's the one that costs people everything. Not everyone reaching for you is real. In the first 9 months of last year alone, Americans reported losing more than $1.1 billion to romance scams. Billion. And adults 60 and over accounted for the majority of those losses. One federal report put people 60 plus at 63% of the total. Older adults are nearly twice as likely as younger adults to report a six-figure loss. 6 figures, somebody's whole retirement, handed over to a person they never once met. And here's the detail almost nobody knows. Nearly 60% of people who lost money to a romance scam said it did not start on a dating app. It started on social media. A comment on a photo, a message from someone who liked your post about your grandson. Now, I could stop there and tell you to be careful, but that's not the part that matters. Here's the part that matters. They don't steal your money first. They steal your loneliness. They call you beautiful, and it's been 11 years since anyone did. They ask how your day was, and then they actually wait for the answer. They text good morning, every single morning. And you're not stupid. You're not naive. You're starving, and somebody put food on the table, and you didn't ask where it came from. That's why it works. Not because you're old, because you're hungry for something you were told. Somewhere along the way, you were too old to still want. So the protection isn't suspicion. Suspicion will just make you cold, and cold is its own kind of prison. The protection is having enough real attention in your life that counterfeit attention doesn't taste like a miracle. Call your sister, say yes to the coffee, sit in the room with the people who already love you badly and imperfectly and for free. Fraud has a much harder time in a full house. And listen, if you're still here with me, this far in, I want to stop for 1 second and say something directly to you. Subscribe to this channel, not for me, for the version of you that's going to need this again on a Tuesday night at 11:15 when the house is too quiet. That's when these words are going to matter, and I want them to be easy to find. And do me one favor. If somebody in your life has ever looked at you and said, "At your age, you should just be grateful for what you had," write that in the comments. Just that. I heard that. Because I want you to see how many people are about to write the same thing. And now I want to tell you the one that nobody says out loud. You are not looking for a partner. You are looking for who you were before. That's the real search. That's what's underneath the profile photos and the coffee dates and the 2 hours you spent deciding whether to wear the blue shirt. You want to feel the way you felt at 32, walking into a room, before life did what life does, before the diagnosis, before the layoff, before you found the messages, before you became the person who handles everything. And I have to be honest with you, because you didn't come here for comfort. You came here for the truth. You're not going to find her. You're not going to find him. That person is gone. And they didn't leave in the divorce. They left slowly, over decades, in 1,000 small surrenders you agreed to one at a time. The grief you're carrying isn't only about a marriage ending. It's about the version of you who believed it wouldn't. And until you bury that person properly, with respect, not with shame, every new relationship becomes an audition for a role that was already recast. Here's what nobody says next, and it's the turn in this whole thing. The person who came out the other side is not a lesser version. She is the edited version. He is the edited version. Everything unnecessary got cut. All the performing, all the keeping the peace, all the pretending the smoke was nothing, gone. What's left is smaller and much harder to break. And that person has never dated in their life. Not once. Because the person who dated was the one still trying to be chosen. Now let me say the thing about the body, because I know it's sitting in some of you right now, and nobody talks about it. You're not afraid of intimacy, you're afraid of being seen. The scar from the surgery, the weight that came and stayed, the way the light in the bedroom is not a friend anymore, the body that carried children, that carried grief, that carried 12-hour shifts for 20 years and never once got thanked. And you're thinking, who wants this now? Here's what I know from every person over 60 who found something real again and told me about it honestly. At 25, intimacy was performance. Everyone was auditioning. Everyone was pretending their body was a promise. At 65, nobody's auditioning. You're both standing there with the same evidence of having lived. And what happens in that room isn't lesser. It's just finally honest. The body you're ashamed of is the body of somebody who stayed, who kept going, who did not quit when quitting was reasonable. There are people who will read that body the way you'd read a good book, slowly and with respect. You just have to stop hiding it from the ones who would. Now the children, because for a lot of you, this is where it actually stops. Not the apps, not the fear, the kitchen table. Your adult child says, "Isn't it a little soon?" Or worse, they don't say anything at all. They just go quiet in a way you've learned to read. And here's what's really happening, and I want to be gentle with them and honest with you. They're not protecting you. They're protecting a story, the story of the house they grew up in, every photograph on their wall, every Christmas they've ever had. And when you start over, you're not just changing your life, you're editing their childhood, retroactively, and they weren't consulted. That's real. Their grief is real. But here's what I need you to hear, and I'm going to say it plainly because you're old enough for plain. You did not raise them so that they could assign you the rest of your life. You get to have a second half. You get to be a person, not just a parent, not just the person who hosts the holidays and makes the calls and remembers everyone's medications. Love them. Give them time. Do not ask them for permission. Now, let me pull the thread all the way through, because there's one more thing, and it's the one everything else has been building toward. There's an old habit almost everyone brings into dating after divorce, and it looks like generosity. You meet somebody, and immediately you start moving furniture. You clear a shelf. You adjust your week. You make room. You start becoming useful because somewhere long ago you learned that being loved and being needed were the same transaction. Stop. You are not an empty house looking for someone to fill it. You already live here. There's food in the kitchen. There are people who call. There's a chair by the window that's yours. And you know exactly how the light comes in at 4 in the afternoon. The question is not whether they can fill your house. The question is whether they can walk into it without asking you to take down walls. That's it. That's the whole test. And it's a test you never got to give at 22, because at 22, you didn't have a house yet. You were building it out of whatever the other person handed you. Which brings me to the last thing nobody tells you, and it's the reason I made this. At 25, you were hoping to be chosen. At 60, you get to choose. And you have never, not once in your entire life, been in that position before. Not when you married. You were young and in love, and the future was a rumor, and everyone was watching, and the invitations were already printed. Not in the middle. In the middle you were surviving, And choosing feels like a luxury when you're surviving. Only now, only here, with everything it cost you to get to this exact room. For the first time, you know what you can live with. You know what you can't. You know exactly what a lie sounds like when it's being told kindly. You know the difference between someone who is calm and someone who is just absent. That knowledge is not a consolation prize for the years you lost. That knowledge is the only thing those years were ever going to give you. So no, this isn't the story about it not being too late. You've heard that one. It's thin and it doesn't hold weight at 3 in the morning. This is a different story. You spent the first half of your life learning how to be wanted. You have the second half to spend on something much rarer, deciding what you want. And if the answer is nobody, if the answer is that chair by the window and the 4 o'clock light and a phone that rings when you want it to, then that is not settling. That is the first free answer you've ever given. And if the answer is someone, then when they show up, they'll be walking into a house that's already warm, which is the only kind of house anybody should ever be let into. Now, one day, you're going to come out of that grocery store, same bags, same parking lot, and you're going to sit down behind the wheel, and there's still going to be nobody at home waiting to ask, what took you so long? And you're going to start the car, not because you got over it, because it stopped being the question. If this reached you, really reached you, do 3 things for me. Follow this channel so the next one finds you. Send this to 5 people, not 5 strangers, 5 people whose names came into your head while I was talking. You already know who they are. And leave me a comment, an honest one, not a nice one, an honest one. Tell me what nobody told you, and tell me what you want us to talk about next, because I read them, and the next video usually starts in that comment section. I'll be right here tomorrow. Same time, same quiet.